Do you know how animals survive during a heat wave? It's currently a heat wave in the UK, so I figured it would be a good time to make this sort of video to discuss how wildlife manages to survive when it's so hot outside that the recommendation is to keep things like dogs and cats indoors. And there's a really good way that I can demonstrate this. So I'm a reptile owner, which means I own a bunch of these heat probes, and I'm going to take them outside and show you. As a professional zoologist, I know a lot about animals, but I also know a lot about how animals interact with the environment and how they're able to survive things like heat waves. So let's go and have a look what's going on outside. To demonstrate what's going on, I'm setting out 3 of these temperature probes. One I'm putting in the middle of a bush to measure the air temperature in a spot that's had shade for most of the day. I'm putting the other end of this probe down on a part of the concrete where the sun has been out for most of the day. And then I've also got a third probe that I'm going to be putting down in the soil where there's never any sunlight and it's actually had water recently put down there. After leaving the probes out for a little while to adjust to the temperature, you can see the results, which are that in the sunlight area, the temperatures have reached almost 31 degrees Celsius, even with some of the shade coming in a little bit later. Over in the shaded area that's not had sun during the day at all, the temperatures are down around 24 degrees Celsius. And then the probe that's down in the soil is actually measuring around 20 degrees Celsius. So that's about a 10-degree difference all within this sort of metre to 2 metre squared area. What this is demonstrating is a concept known as microhabitats, which are tiny areas that represent different climatic conditions within a wider habitat. And it means that wildlife that's much smaller than humans are able to exist in areas that we would find very hot by taking shelter in shaded spots that are much lower in temperature. And then they can go through other processes like their own biological functions like panting to help cool them down. But really it's these microhabitats having such a wide variety of temperature ranges all in a small space that is what's helping out with these wildlife species. As you can see with just how much those temperatures vary, it's really important to have microhabitats, particularly if you're planning to manage a space for wildlife. If you just have one big woodland with no exposure to the sun, or one big grassland with no way to escape the sun, then you don't get that range allowing wildlife to warm up and then also cool down. We've got all sorts of things like reptiles that will need to be able to warm up, but then we've also got animals that aren't as tolerant of the heat, like our mammals, so things like hedgehogs and foxes, that need to hide out during the day while all this heat is happening. So having a big variety in your garden really helps them. Of course, providing them with things like water and sometimes supplementary food if the heat wave is really getting bad will also help, but the microhabitats are a natural way of doing a really big thing to help them, and is what you would find just out in the wild anyway. Let me know if you've got any microhabitats in your garden or in a space near you like a nature reserve that you've taken notice of. Maybe just something like a pile of wood in a corner somewhere or a bit of soil in a mound. And make sure to subscribe to this channel to keep learning about different things related to wildlife.